theory game. Hello, welcome to our next session. We have Dr. Mott in the room, also known as Theory Game. Super excited. We've been, I personally have been following you for such a long time. I'm so glad to see you kind of in person, virtually in person. But yeah, just a little, for those that are tuning in, just a little about Natasha Mott, Dr. Natasha Mott. She is currently, let me find again. She currently directs a number of projects in biotech and informal education, serving as a senior medical science liaison, where she facilitates medical affairs strategy, clinical trial support, and education. Natasha experiments in humor and creativity, and that's the driving force to her brand Theory Game, an intellectual entertainment company where they flagshipped a game called Work. So stay tuned. She might be giving that away to you guys, or we'll be giving her away her game to those that are participating in the live summit. But she's gonna bless us with some knowledge with her talk on work hard, play hard, secrets to attaining and enjoying success in STEM. So we'll give it to you.
Thanks, Stephanie. You guys are doing such a great job. I fully support what you're doing. You know, there's a lot of sentiments that have been going on through this that I echo, and I'll kind of touch on some of those as I go through the presentation. But just a big shout out to the organizers. You guys are doing such a good job. So yeah, I mean, you can see from this slide, I do a lot of different things. First and foremost, I'm a wife. I'm a mother. Well, first and foremost, I'm a mother, then I'm a wife, daughter, friend. I mentor folks, and also I'm getting mentoring, and I'm constantly learning. I chaired the Portland Science Fest this year, hoping to pass the baton really soon. To pay the bills, I work in biotech. I'm a senior medical science liaison. I work in oncology currently, but I've worked in rare disease. And I have another project called the Multiverse. I'm not going to talk too much about that. It's really early, really new, really exciting. But what I'm going to talk most about is the stuff I've done with Theory Gang and kind of how I've gotten here. Work hard, play always. That's kind of my motto and how I'm always going to be in my life. So this is me in high school physics, and I'm showing you this so you know what I'm about. And appearances can be deceiving because you're probably thinking she's a slacker, you know, she doesn't do her work. But I was probably sleeping because I already had an A in physics, and I was working the night before. I worked in high school, I worked all through college. I was probably doing math team stuff, or maybe I was at a football game leading the marching band. But I always worked really, really hard, and I played really hard, and I don't take things too seriously. So that's me. And this is a little game board I designed. This was a game I played when I was a kid. You're going to see a lot of games because that's kind of my jam, and that's a little bit about what Theory Gang does. Try and make everything into a game, especially intellectual subjects. So this is a game board, and another thing you'll see during this presentation are some book covers, things that I think are really important, books that I've read that helped me on my journey. So this is the STEM Success Game of Life, and like most kids, Dr. Stacy said it, Dr. Reed said it, you know, kids in STEM that were smart and come from first generation, you know, college families that never went to college, what do they tell you to be? Be a doctor. So that's kind of where I started out. I'm like, okay, I'll be a doctor. And then I fell in love with research. So the first research project I had was from Bio 101. Professor put up a Punnett square and said, we're looking at Cape ground squirrel genetics and hormones. Who wants to dissect fecal squirrel samples? And I was like, oh, I do. So I fell in love with research doing that. And I did a lot of other projects in college just because of the same thing. I went to University of Central Florida, big shout out. And there were so many opportunities to participate in research. I worked on malaria, I worked on prostate cancer. And another thing about this time in my life, I had a really big slip up, pretty much the first big failure of my life. There were some personal challenges I was going through in college. I worked full time. I was in the lab. I graduated in 3 years. And I had to quit a research lab that I started with Dr. Carl Chai. I was so mortified. The man took me to my first Chinese restaurant where we read in Cantonese from the menu. He was my idol. He was amazing. And I felt really bad that I had to leave. But it wasn't game over, you know, it was just a pause. So he ended up writing me a really stellar letter of recommendation, and I'm really glad I didn't give up at that point because there was so much more of this game to play. So the next thing I did, I tried a QA job in food science. And that was kind of my backup plan if I didn't get into grad school. In the meantime, I married my childhood sweetheart when I was still in college. And actually, I started grad school before I even graduated because, again, physics was always kind of messing me up. I had to take a physics course as my final course during summer, and ended up having to take the final a month early. And you know how hard that could be, taking a summer course and having to take the final a month early. But I worked it out. I played this game because I knew even if I failed the exam, I'd still graduate and still get a C in physics, which actually I think I did. So anyways, I started grad school, and in grad school, I published. I volunteered with some STEM outreach groups. I taught. And then in my third year, I ended up getting a grant. I tried for a couple different grants, and I ended up getting one. And at that point, I really wanted to have a family. So we bought a house, and we were able to buy a house on my graduate student stipend and my husband's small salary at the time. He worked in a restaurant, and we had a baby. And it was perfect. I loved being a mom. I was a different kind of mom, I think, but I stayed true to myself. Then something kind of really tough happened. The second big challenge in my life, probably the biggest challenge to date, I would say. My husband's career really started to take off. I was super proud of him. And I had to choose between my family unit and my career. So I got a postdoc at UNC Chapel Hill that I could take, but I'd have to take my daughter, and it'd be just us, and we'd be apart from my husband. Or I could stick around and try to figure something else out. And this is my tribe, if I have one, which I'll talk more about that in a minute. But I decided to stick with my tribe, and that they were really important to me. So I ended up getting what this game board so conveniently calls a temporary career as a postdoc. I didn't collect $20,000. I think the salary was like 40-something thousand at the time. You know, after you get your PhD, you get a nice $40,000 paycheck. And it didn't work. I knew very quickly, you know, I was going to have to leave academia. Within 6 months of being in that postdoc, I knew it wasn't the right choice for me. So actually the next step was a payday. So I left and went to industry, and someone just said this, I can't remember who, but talking about biotech, there's definitely a payday in biotech. And this is my husband and I during that time playing another game, doing our Stevie J phase, you know, because we were happy, we were getting money, we were going on trips. I had a lot of time with my daughter. It was great. Perfect. And, you know, I was a little bit unsatisfied intellectually coming from academia. I kind of knew this because in industry, there's certain things you can't talk about. You can't share everything. There's a lot of regulations in biotech with education and what you can and can't share, what looks to be promotional, what doesn't. So I was a little stifled creatively at that point. So I ended up doing a lot of different things. I volunteered on some legislative projects. I worked on March for Science, which we turned last year into Science Fest. And also I started Theory Gang. I tried a couple different projects before they really launched. And we landed on Theory Gang because we wanted to make games that educate and inform people, but also keep it entertaining and light. And so here's where I am right now. I thought this was another perfectly convenient thing in this game board I found. Start thinking about getting back on track, miss next turn. And I'm kind of in that moment right now. And I wanted to let you know that that will happen even after you get your PhD, or even after you think you're in your career. That's probably going to happen to you at some point in your life. So what I want to tell you about is how this STEM game can really work out for you. If you set your objective, you work with the players, you know the rules, and you appreciate the game. Most of all, you got to keep playing. So the first component of this is setting your objective, figuring out not only what game you're playing, but why you're playing this particular game. For me, I thought I was going to play this pre-med game. That's what I was told I was supposed to do. And really quickly, I figured out that wasn't what I was interested in. I was more interested in this kind of a game. I don't know if you've seen this cartoon. It's pretty cool. Like this is a circle that contains all of human knowledge, which is something that, you know, I think as scientists and STEM professionals, we're all really interested in. And when you're learning and you're in your early undergrad, you're learning inside this circle. You get a master's, maybe you're pushing out in one direction. You get a PhD and you're poking out a little bit. That's what you did with your PhD. You created a little indent in human knowledge with your PhD. So once I did that, I stepped back and I was like, okay, that's a cool game. Played that game. I don't know if I want to keep poking out little pops like this. I'm more interested maybe in figuring out what's in the rest of the circle. So I had to take a step back and I had to reprioritize. So I realized a PhD is not enough. And I hated this book when I read it. This is a good book to read and reread after you do a PhD. So I kind of reached this moment at the crossroads of should and must, another great book that I think anyone who's trying to figure it out should read. And I kind of made my own crossroads. I made a crossroads of needs and strengths. And this is kind of how I approach these transitional periods in my life. So to do that, I thought about what do I really need? And this is, you may recognize Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. It's a framework for understanding all basic human needs. And it starts on the bottom with physiological, just being well and healthy, feeling safe, love and belonging, esteem, and then actualizing all these things that you've finally gotten to achieve. So for a lot of us that come from underrepresented backgrounds or first-generation college students, money is the key because it gets at this bottom of the pyramid that we probably never got. So we're taught very early, secure the bag. I mean, how many times have I heard this during this seminar? And it doesn't really go with academics. Academics tell you, don't worry about the money. So this is an important thing that we all have to consider where it lies in our priorities. Also, as STEM professionals and STEM learners, we're really interested in learning. That's kind of what we're into. And that really goes towards our self-esteem, self-actualization. These are things that are on our priority list. Making an impact. We don't get into science and STEM to just, make money or whatever. We really usually want to make some kind of impact on everyday human life, the circle of knowledge, our own communities, our families, technology. This is what we're interested in. And a lot of this comes here with the self-actualization. Family and friends, we have to consider that because even though you level up on this pyramid, you can't skip steps. Some of us never really felt this sense of love and belonging. Maybe we've been part of a tribe, but we don't really feel part of that tribe. You have to consider where this need is for you when you're considering your career and every step of it. So don't forget about the rest of the pyramid just because you think you've made it or something. Don't level up before you get these experience points. Take care of all of your needs. And then feeling successful. I think this is kind of in the esteem category. Some of us really have a need to prove what we're doing or to just feel good about what we're doing. And this looks different for everybody. I had a friend who told me she would feel really successful when she could carry around a venti latte in her pencil skirt and pumps and walk through the city. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing that and I don't even feel successful. For me, if I could get my hands tattooed and wear my hoodie, that would be real success for me. So it looks different for everybody, what feeling successful is for. So we'll go through my priorities and how they've changed, just to give you an example. In 2014, I was worried about that money. I was graduating with my PhD. My husband was starting a business. I had loans. I was like, okay, I need to get this money. I was also worried about enjoying my life. I had a 2-year-old and I was working 12-hour days as a postdoc or more. So some nights I wouldn't even put her to bed. I'd leave before she got up and not even, just get to kiss her head as she fell asleep. And that ain't a way a mom wants to be. Feeling successful, I really wanted to feel that. I'd done a lot, I published a lot, I got grants, but I didn't feel that success. I was kind of thinking about what that girl had said. Like I haven't felt that yet at this point. And making an impact. I was really concerned with my family at that point. My sister, I was trying to help support her getting through college and getting into college and all that stuff. And this is something that first generation students have to deal with too. A lot of times we have family baggage and stuff that we have to carry. And it's part of your needs. You can place it where you need, but it's part of your needs. So this was 2014 when I decided to go into industry. These are the things that led me to that decision. Also, I was ready to apply my learnings. I had published a lot and I went into work for biotech that was working on one of the first systemic antisense oligonucleotides in rare disease. And I was like, cool, I can't wait to see how this gets translated into the clinic. It was awesome. I learned so much. Now, 5, almost 6 years later, my priorities have changed. This is a great book. You all know Harari writes a lot of great books, but this is one that I've read, recently, and it resonates with me. And I got a lot of books in this particular slide. But for me, the first priority right now, I'm ready to learn more. I feel like I've learned a lot in industry. It gets a little flat sometimes because you're learning in one direction again. So I started learning how to code. And that's kind of where the Multiverse project comes in. And, I can answer more questions about that. But I taught myself how to code. And, that's where I'm at. I'm really interested in learning how to do that. I know a little bit Python. I started a little bit C#. This is some JavaScript I've been working on. And that's what really makes me happy. Enjoy life. This is still super important to me. I get to spend a lot of time with my family right now. I've met some long lost family, which has been amazing, connecting with people. My husband and I have been together 22 years. So, we still have to work at that. And that's something I think is really important. You have to keep working at all the relationships in your life. I would never cut his head off. But making an impact, that has kind of changed for me, and what I see is making an impact. And these are a few books that I've read that have really resonated with me on making an impact. I'm super interested in how we become super polarized as a society. We can't have intellectual conversations anymore. I'm super interested in how social media is changing everything for people, for good and for bad, and how we can make it the best it can be. Money. I've stacked some coin now. So money's actually went from number 1 to number 4. So I'm feeling pretty good. My husband's business is pretty successful. We both work from home. I got my daughter working. I'm just kidding. No, she's playing Minecraft. But money is lower on my priorities now. And feeling successful. All this kind of makes me feel successful. So I don't really know if I need to feel that anymore. I'm ready to take some hits and take some failures again. So this is really lower on my priorities. So if I put that on my little axis, you can see where these kinds of things fall. I put my needs, so they should go top to bottom, but I kind of put them in my strengths too, like where are they fall in my strengths? Learning, I'm really strong in that. I'm pretty good at enjoying my life. I could make more of an impact at this point. So these items are in the right direction. They should be in this quadrant, but I probably need to sharpen my sword on a lot of those things. In terms of money, I told you I could probably, this could probably move over a little bit. If I have to take a pay cut, I probably could. Feeling successful. This is really low. I'm not that good at whatever that is, feeling successful. I'm used to failure. And I don't really care too much about it. So maybe this isn't actually a real priority for me. So kind of visualizing like this has helped me. In fact, I feel like if you have your priorities straight, they should kind of reside in this quadrant. Maybe they go into your weaknesses a little bit, but they should all be on the top half. Like these should all be your needs. These are your needs that we laid out. Next thing you should do is kind of look at this axis of strengths. What are you good at? What are you not so good at? I'm pretty good at communicating in a professional sense. I'm really good at executing and designing projects. I excel at, reading data and analyzing it, interpreting it. I love getting feedback. I'm pretty good at incorporating positive and negative feedback into all of my projects. Some things I could improve on, my education. Sometimes my messaging doesn't always hit. I could definitely do better on that. I want to have more meaningful collaborations. I want to work more on being more strategic, and I really want to improve my coding skills. So if we put all these things on my axis, this is kind of where they fell out, and we'll add the kind of things that, aren't really doing so good over here. The money is not something that's important. Feeling successful is not really important. So I would say when you look at this, the object of your game, whatever game you're trying to play, should fit into this quadrant. This should really be where your objective lies. And another great resource for trying to figure this out is this book. I had a friend who's a coach give me this book, and they do an exercise where you take the chicken soup of your life and you dissect all the ingredients to it and make a better soup, putting things in your life that you really want, taking the things out. So that's the object of the game. Now let's talk about the players. We're all in this together, and if we're playing a game, we have to deal with each other, and we have to know who the players are. So in STEM, traditionally, this is what the players look like. Now, he's still there. Einstein's still that, iconic looking scientists. I went to a party, mad science party, and everybody's dressed like this, and I was really upset about it. But this is what it is, and we're starting to get better at making sure that the players look more like what the human population is. We're getting better, but it still needs work. The reason I put this up is because I want everyone to think about their own unique perspectives and their own unique skill set, and make sure you're leveraging those things as you look for your careers. And your career may be hidden. This is not what STEM looks like. I'm not sitting in a microscope. I'm still a scientist. So, look at Indeed and don't be afraid to think about, outside the box for what a science career could look like. It could be anything. And it kind of made me think of this metaphor a little bit for the game of Clue. If you remember this game, this is kind of what the Clue game looked like back in the day, the cover. And I would argue now, let's just add a little change here. If we're talking about the game of STEM, this is what it could look like. And I will do a little giveaway here. If you can name all of these people that in the Slack, I'll send you this hat right here. Obviously, this is an easy one. You may be able to find me in the biotech sector with the intellectual game. You may be able to find this chick in the library with the social media hookup. So if you can name these people, and they're not all famous people, obviously, not yet, but I'll give you a prize. So the other thing I want to say about the players is, and I mean this in the most loving way possible, people are all the same. We all have unique niches, but we all have the same needs. And a lot of us in STEM have that same pyramid set up, things that we're interested in. So be sure that when you are deciding what to do, you recognize that people are people and you want to be treating them that way. I've worked with a lot of different amazing people. And, in industry, in academia, in nonprofit land, you have to work well with people no matter what. And that's all I can say about the players. So sometimes you get to choose who you work with though. And I would say when you get to do that, your first step probably is choosing your mentors. And when you're doing that, and later on you'll get to choose your team too, when you're moving up in your career, you'll get to decide who's going to help support you. But I would say choose based on your top objectives. Looking back at your little crossroads of strengths and needs, decide what you want. When I was choosing my PhD mentor, I wasn't even interested in neuroscience. I was a molecular biologist, but she sold me on it. And not only did she sell me on that, she sold me on telling me about her children, because I knew I might want a family someday. She told me about how she loves to ski, how she loves the Grateful Dead. I don't love the Grateful Dead. To this day, I don't love the Grateful Dead, but she was cool. She was into music, she was into skiing, and she had all her stuff together. She published a lot. She was awesome. And I'm so glad I chose her. Also on your team, or who your mentors are, you want to choose the people who are going to help pick up the pieces. When I think of this, I think about my partner, Danessa, in Theory Gang. We worked together in March for Science, Science Fest, and I know if I ask Danessa for help, she's going to help me. If something hits the fan, Danessa's going to do it. So really want to make sure you're choosing the right people. The other thing, if the last slide didn't impress this upon you, maybe this one will. You're probably going to have to go outside of your tribe. You're probably in a lot of different circumstances when you find success, going to see a lot of different people, especially people that don't look like you, people that don't think like you, people that don't agree with you. And you need all of those people to make a great team. You need opposing opinions. It's really important. And finally, who do you want to hype up? Who are you excited about being with? Who's going to hype you up? Because honestly, if they're not hyping you up, what are you even doing? You got to be hyped to work with people that you get to choose. Now, sometimes you don't get to choose. I've been in situations like that. I may be in a situation like that right now, where I didn't get to really choose what ingredients I'm working with. Sometimes you got no money, broken equipment, a team that doesn't vibe, and some duct tape. Now make a nature paper. That's just the way it goes. In dealing with this, I recommend this book. I don't agree with everything in this book, but I will say this is a good book for some tips. So biggest tip is practice empathy. If you're really mad or really irritated about somebody, think about their perspective. Everybody's got a struggle. And in that, maybe that'll help you not to criticize. You know, I've been in situations where people have snubbed me on papers, people have snubbed me social media, and you just keep it moving. You know, just keep doing what you're doing and don't worry about people who set up roadblocks for you. In fact, find common ground with them. You know, find a way to become genuinely interested in whatever they're about. I had a girl in grad school who hated me. She didn't tell me that, but I could just tell. And at the end of grad school, she told me, you know what, I really hated you. I'm like, I know. She told me why, and it wasn't anything about me, it was about her. So we bonded because I kept pushing, because I kept turning the other cheek, and I kept, you know, kind of taking the hits a little bit. And it didn't make me weak, it made me strong. And I supported her regardless. You know, she had a lot of problems, you know, during grad school, and I was there for her. You know, she cried on my shoulder. You know, she was mean as hell to me. And she admits to this day, we're very good friends right now. We're really tight. She wrote me a letter, a recommendation on LinkedIn. She's an incredible person. But I wouldn't have found that out if I didn't try to empathize with her and relate with her. So, you know, just keep that in mind. In fact, leverage your differences in opinion and your different strengths. You know, when I was in grad school, I hated taking the trunk blood from these rats. It was an awful job. I didn't like it, but I could whip the brain out like nobody's business. So I would always do that. And we did this on a ton of sacrifices where, you know, I would do that and she would do the other part. And that's how I got on some of her papers, even though she snubbed me on some. But, you know, she helped me, I helped her, you know, we leveraged our differences. And I told her I honestly appreciated it because I did, you know, I really did appreciate it. I couldn't have done it without her. I would have really struggled. The final thing I'll say about this is make sure you manage expectations. Do not expect too much from yourself and do not expect too much from other people. Make sure that you're clear about what you can do and what you can deliver, and make sure that you understand what they're clear about, what they've said they can do and deliver. That's accountability right there. Final word about competing with others. Just don't even do it. Your biggest competition is you. Don't worry about it. That's what I'm going to say about this game. You can't worry about the other players. So finally, the rules. Do's, don'ts, how to win. Is this a game about winning? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a getting to know you game. But what I'll say is that I found basketball to be a really good template for most games. And, you know, I had to put this up because Melo just decided to come over to the Trailblazers. I'm not going to gloat, but I'm excited about that. So what I'll say about basketball, the rules about basketball, they actually apply to STEM, I feel like. I would say, first and foremost, use the foul lines. When it comes to STEM, I show you that little picture of the circle of human knowledge. We're pushing on the edge of it. I don't recommend playing the box. I recommend playing the edge because that's where we're at. You know, you can push outside that boundary and you may get stuck, you may get in trouble, but keep pushing. You know, no matter what you do, just don't play it safe. Not in STEM. That's not what we're here for. You want to play it safe? I don't know. Go write a nonfiction or something, or a fiction. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right analogy, but definitely don't play it safe. And this goes to what I was just talking about, pass the ball. You remember that game, Sorry? If you're trying to form alliances and you're not passing the ball, you're pushing other people out, you're not going to get very far. You may get far as an individual, but you're going to find as you get farther and farther in your career, you really need to pass the ball. You really need that assist. 3-pointers. Know what they are in your industry or your area or your sector. In academia, it's grants and it's publishing. And I did a lot. I missed a lot too. There's a lot of practice for these 3-pointers, but when you get them, the crowd goes wild. So make sure you're pushing for those 3-pointers. Industry, I feel like it's a lot easier to score 3-pointers than academia. You can show your value pretty easily when it comes to a revenue generating company, whereas creating knowledge is a little bit harder. Same thing with nonprofits. Nonprofits, you really get to see the tangible effects of what you do. Free throws. Free throws are interesting because in industry, you know, free throw for me right now is completing my expense report. I had a mentor in industry tell me, you know, an expense report will not make you in this industry, but it can break you. You can get fired for, you know, an administrative task not being done. If they want to fire you, that's the surefire way to do it. So make sure you're hitting those free throws. Again, in academia, free throws, not so much. There's not a lot of free throws. Committee work, but you really don't score a lot of points for those. So when you can't score a free throw, make sure you're playing to your strengths. What are you really good at? For me in academia, I was really good at pumping out journal clubs. Like I always shined at journal clubs because people liked the topics I picked and I made an entertaining presentation. So that was my kind of free throw in grad school. Learn, oh, come on now, learn the positions. This is important. Not everybody's going to be the point guard. Not everybody's going to be the leader. Not everybody's going to be a PI. Know your position, especially if you're a grad student or if you're coming up in the industry. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. I know we all want to get to that top of that pyramid, but make sure you collect your points. Like you can't be LeBron if you're just starting out. Collect your points and then level up. Know the plays. Sometimes you're on offense. Sometimes you're running in, and scoring, you're doing layups. I mean, sometimes you're setting a pick. Sometimes you are on defense. I'll tell you right now, in industry, offense has been what we call a fire drill, where, you need to show your value. I'm in a non-revenue generating position. So sometimes I have to show what value I'm providing. We call that a fire drill, where we have to, send that value up the chain and show what we're doing. In grad school you're literally doing a defense, like they're poking holes in your argument and you're literally doing a defense. Right now, I'm in defensive mode. I'm practicing, I'm honing my skills, I'm incubating. Sometimes you're troubleshooting experiment. Sometimes you're working out equations. Sometimes you're doing statistical tests. These are all different plays and you got to know where you're at and what plays you need to run when you need to run them. Oh, maybe you're writing a grant, maybe you've been laid off. These are all like defensive positions that, you have to maintain. And they don't broadcast the practice, so don't expect, this is like goes with IG, like don't expect to see people's practice shots. You're only going to see when they hit those 3-pointers. So make sure that you're practicing and you're grinding and you're staying on it, but don't expect to see other people struggle. This is so corny, but it's so true that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take a lot of shots. I take a lot of shots. I miss a lot of shots, but I take them. I'm not going to go all the way through this because, I was just kind of trying to think about how the rules exist and where to find them, but you can find them. And I'll just go quickly and say, learning a new industry, I've done this several times now, learning a different industry, learning a different therapeutic area, going from oncology to neuroscience. What I'll say is transform the skills you already have. My husband taught me this. He's a tech recruiter. And when I was leaving academia, I was crying. I don't have any skills. All I can do is pipette. So he read this job description. He walked me through it. He's like, you got this. Maybe you don't understand clinical data, but you know how to read data. You know how to interpret stuff. You can do this. And so he helped me transform what I already had into what was appealing to these hiring managers. And I got the job. Network, always be networking, always treat people with respect. And most importantly, on this cheat code over here, leave everyone better than you found them. Don't expect something from someone if you don't have some value to offer them. And sometimes you don't, sometimes you have nothing, but make sure when you have nothing that you're paying it forward and they know you're genuine and that you're going to take this information and make the world better with it. Training, get your PhD, learning how to code. There's a lot of different places you can do this. There's a lot of different agencies. You just have to look. And sometimes you'll get that information from networking. The biggest thing I'll say about training, don't pay for what you can get for free. Let me say it again. Don't pay for what you can get for free. Because there's a lot of free. I learned how to code from YouTube. I pay $2,000 for a course. And if you do pay $2,000 for a course, you got to figure out where the real value is, because it's not in the videos. It's not in the tutorials. It's in connecting. A lot of times it's in networking. So get the real value out of your education. Writing grants. I got a grant right now. I took 6 weeks. I started early. 6 weeks face down, writing that grant nonstop. I'm waiting on it now. I'm prepared not to get it. So I also got a template from networking. I was at a networking event. I heard about this grant. I started writing it. She gave me a template, submitted it, but this is just part of the process. Nonprofits. I've walked into several nonprofits and I've seen people come and go from nonprofits, and what they try to do is everyone wants to start their own. I'm in Portland, nonprofit capital of the world. Everyone wants to start their own nonprofit. Do not come in and think, again, you can level up over people. Just do, be a doer and you'll level up pretty quick. politics. This is important, no matter where you are. I don't mean national politics. I mean internal politics in whatever STEM organization you're in right now. The cheat code here is don't speak unless you know who you're talking to and what you're talking about. And even then, I've had some great mentors that have kind of navigated some of the politics of industry for me and told me, don't walk over there. That may look like some bamboo leaves, but it's a pile of spikes underneath. So, you have to find people you trust, and this is where your tribe can come in. And this is why building your tribe outside of your tribe, having an interdisciplinary tribe, so to speak, of people that support you can be important, because you need these people in all facets of your life. And this is where you find the unwritten rules in connecting with people. And I mean, sometimes there's alcohol. I'll tell you, there may be alcohol in quite a few of, not all of these pictures, but some of these pictures. And you don't have to drink either, but just know that's where you find the rules, is when you can get people to cut loose. And there's a lot of tea that gets spilled in these scenarios. So, and I think I'm pretty good at actually finding these scenarios. My husband said when I was telling him this presentation, he's like, you can't just talk about the rules because the rules aren't real. And I said, but I've always been a rule follower. And I said, but they're easier when they're defined. In science, you mostly follow the rules. Sometimes you got to get creative, but there's a method. We support science not because we're passionate about it, not because it makes us feel good, not because, of anything. It's quite disparate with a lot of things in our feelings and emotions. It's really not natural human instinct to support science, but we believe in the formula as the best way of finding the truth about the universe. So that's why we follow the rules in science. In tech, there are quite a few rules, but they're discrete sets of rules. In learning a different language or a framework, there are rules within that, but there are many different ways to get to the same answer in tech. And that's what probably makes tech a little bit trickier, is because there's a lot of different ways and the rules are defined, but there's multiple sets. Engineering is really about rules as a guide. You're iterating and you're designing in engineering. And this is probably what I know the least about, but that's what I've gleaned from that. Math is all rules. Math is the universal language. If I say 2 + 2 = 4 in English, it's the same in Spanish. It's the same in Cantonese. It's the same. That's bound by rules. Math is. Medicine is interesting because there are rules, but the rules aren't always defined. You want to use the best available rules. And one of those rules is first do no harm. So learn the rules so you know where to break them. And I wanted to echo something that Erica Douglas said a couple days ago. She said, a startup is about building the parachute as you fall off the plane or something. I always heard of it as you're riding the bicycle down the street while you build it. So you're making the rules in a startup. And this is a quote that I just want to share with you. It's actually from my therapist. I recommend everybody goes to therapy. You should follow him on Twitter. He's hilarious. But he says, the stronger the cage, the wilder the beast. And this is about putting parameters up in your life. My husband and I are very spontaneous, but I travel every week, never know where I'm going to be. He works from home and we want that spontaneity. So we have to put very strict rules around what we do. Where am I going to be this week? Who's taking my kid to school? What's your me time thing you're doing this week? What's our date night? We have to put those parameters up, and then we can be as spontaneous as we want. So sometimes the rules can be really a good assist to you. And I'm going to say also, everybody says, don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't hate the player, don't hate the game. Don't hate, appreciate, because, you're playing this game for a reason. So just make sure you're appreciating every step, the hard steps, the good steps. And there's 3 reasons why I think most games get boring. Either you're losing, you're stuck, or you're distracted. You're playing a video game. If you look outside, someone's calling you, you're immediately out of that game. So you're distracted from the game. Same thing in the industry. If you lose focus on what you're doing, you're not going to want to play anymore. So if you're losing, which I was in this picture, this is our 2016 Christmas card. I was really having a moment. I was really challenged, and I just didn't feel good. I remember the end of 2016, I was on a super high everywhere else, and I just kind of, so I had to start asking myself some questions. When did I start losing? Why was I losing? What did it look like around me? What was making me not feel so good about the game I was playing? And I won't get into all those things. We can talk about it later if you want. But these are questions I had to ask myself. And really importantly, on the come up, how can you re-up? What do I need to get back to where I need to be. For me, I was writing a lot. I write a lot. I was on plane rides writing. I was in therapy. You know, I'm a big proponent of therapy. Second time I'll say it again if I have to. There's no shame in working out your feelings and what you've gone through in your struggle. I needed self-care. I was traveling so much. I decided within my, parameters for myself, I needed a massage monthly. So I got a massage thing because, I need help around the house. So I took care of me. I tried to re-up and feel better, and it helped. Who's going to be your allies? Who's going to help you push through this part when you're losing? Who's still going to be there? And really importantly, what's your next move? When you're losing, you got to be thinking about what you're going to do to fix this. And most importantly about losing, reframe your losses. This is critical. Reframe your failures. In science, in STEM, you're going to fail a lot. And I love this quote, turn your L's into lessons, because that's going to help you re-up and get back on a good track. But you know what? They don't want to see the L's on the gram. I'll tell you that. I think we should. I really feel like if this is something about social media I'd love to see more of, where people are sharing their genuine selves. And, they don't want to see where you're in meetings all day that don't mean nothing. They don't want to see when you've made a manufacturing error, you got to repackage 1,000 games. They don't want to see when you're idle and the person you aspired to be kind of crashes down for you, or whatever it is. They don't want to see it, but I really feel like we should think about this more. Also, maybe you're bored of playing a game because you're stuck. Remember this game? I actually like this part of the game because what would happen is I'd get to go through this gumdrop pass, or I'd get like this little gumdrop spot right here, and then I get stuck. And that's just kind of the way it goes. What I'll tell you is don't get bitter. Maybe you're not graduating when you want to be graduating. Maybe your PI is making you do some stuff you don't want to do. Maybe you're not getting promoted. Don't get bitter, because even if you see other people having success, your time will come. You'll get off that spot that you're in. Maybe review the rules. Maybe there's something you're missing. Maybe this spot right here, you didn't realize there's a workaround. Think about it. Consult your mentors. Consult, multiple different resources, like from that table I showed. Try and figure out how to get unstuck. Check out the scenery. If you really can't get unstuck, I like this part of the game because I was like, oh, this little guy's interesting to look at, and the licorice castle. There's a lot of good science memes out there. Sometimes you're stuck and you can really relate to people. This is a terrible meme, but sometimes you need to just take a step back, from whatever you're doing. Maybe try relating to people a little bit differently. And then finally, if you can't get unstuck, reconsider that game that you're playing. Maybe you really don't like this game. I played this game called Eldritch Horror. I really didn't like it. My postdoc, I was stuck. I really didn't want to play that game anymore. I figured that out, and I had to be honest with myself. I really don't. Maybe I've invested a lot of time, the sunk cost fallacy. I just didn't want to be in academia anymore, and I thought that was my dream. So I had to stop, and I got help. My husband's recruiter, he helped me get out of that position. And again, most importantly, what is your next move if you're stuck? And final thing I'll say about appreciating the game, people stop playing games when they're distracted. Like I said about the video game, when you get distracted, you're gonna immediately be out of that game. So what I say to you at that point is check your objectives. Why are you distracted? Are you not in the zone that you need to be in right now? Minimize the distractions that you really don't need in your life. Social media is good. I've said that several times, but you really need all that validation. It's a distraction. You find yourself scrolling the gram or Twitter. Oh, even Twitter's even worse. Be careful. Take a break. Oh, that's a snafu I had. Take a break from whatever you're doing. Maybe you need to check in with your family. Maybe you need to check in with yourself. And most importantly, what's your next move? What is your next move? Always be thinking about that. So some takeaways, some things I want to mention. Don't flex. It's wasted energy. Unless that's what you have to be doing. Sometimes there's certain reasons why you should be flexing. I love this quote. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Make sure your game matches your objective. Do not be, if you're on social media a lot, and I love this, and you're posting a lot of stuff on social media, unless you're trying to be a STEM communicator, and I think it's great to communicate your science, but if you're trying to be to get an NIH grant, let's say, for example, You need to be doing the preliminary experiments. You need to be publishing. You need to be going to conferences. You need to be at the bench, not on Instagram. So unless Instagram directly aligns or social media directly aligns with your goals and objectives, think about how you use it. It's a tool to get where you want to get. And finally, if you can't find your game, your niche, make it. That's what I did. You know, I love to play. I'm playful. I'm energized by intellectual things. I made my own game. So set your objective, work with the players, know the rules, appreciate the game, and most of all, keep playing. So here's the books I mentioned. If you have any questions, I am happy to take them. I don't know how much time we have, but that's it.
All right. Can you?
Yeah. Oh, I can't hear you.
Wait. I'm on. Okay.
Oh, we're good.
Yo, Natasha, you got bars, man. We were like, woo, every time you said something.
I think this is my favorite talk. So like, this is my, just for the fact that you're able, like your game theory leader, like and aligning that with like your hustle to keep moving forward, I think was just very unique and also just so clutch on the gems and the facts that you pretty much like laid out for us, and everything is going to be so useful. But yeah, we're so excited. This is so awesome. We do have one question. Justin wants to know, what is your process for creating products that have value in your business?
Oh yeah. You know, so I just did the startup school through Y Combinator. And so this is more for the tech project, but it applies to the game too. Testing, you know, talking to your users, talking to the people who are going to be, I mean, like Erica said, you know, she has a stake in that community. So making sure that you're talking to the people that are going to be benefiting from this, and making sure that you're, you know, if you're building a tech product, test, talk to users. We did so much play testing with work, and I learned a lot. And for our next game, it's, you know, we're going to do the same thing. So just make sure that you're talking to the people that need your product and want your product and will pay for your product.
Nice. Do you have any other questions for Natasha? All right, we're gonna, yeah, this was so valuable, and we thank you for your time, for joining us. Head over to the Slack. We just mostly re-quoted all of like the awesome stuff that you said. But just kind of hang around with us if you want. But thank you again, Natasha, for your time. And
thank you.
Give her another round of applause.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you
All right,
later.
bye.
Bye.